Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a shortcut, really, into the origin stories of some of the most famous folklore in the world.
We are. We're not just looking at the Brothers Grimm collection in general. We are going straight to the source material.
And we're going to pull out the real nuggets of consequence.
Exactly. And these are the tales before they were, sanitized, before they were softened up for children. We're dealing with stories that are fundamentally practical, really strange, and often, well, shockingly brutal.
And you find that the villains are often driven less by some kind of cartoon magic and more by just desperate economic pressures.
For sure.
So our mission today is to cut through all the modern fluff and zero in on the three things that I think truly define these classic tales.
Which are?
First, the surprising success of cunning over brute strength.
Yeah.
Second, the systematic and honestly dedicated nature of revenge.
And third, the bizarrely specific, completely unforgiving rules that govern magical contracts and hubris.
This is a world where succeeding often means being the best liar in the room, or maybe just the most outrageously optimistic fool. Let's start with a character who seems to defy all financial and logical laws. Hans. We're talking Hans in luck, and this whole story is just a masterclass in subjective happiness.
Right. So Hans has worked faithfully for 7 years. He gets his wages, which is a piece of silver as large as his head.
As large as his head.
And he immediately sees it as a burden, a crushing weight, literally and figuratively. He wants ease more than he wants wealth.
So he immediately trades that lump of silver for a horse. And he feels like he's won the lottery because he doesn't have to carry the weight anymore. But his perpetual downgrade doesn't stop there.
Not at all. He quickly trades the horse for a cow, thinking, great, I'll be self-sufficient with milk.
Then the cow gets exchanged for a pig.
Which he thinks is fantastic because, well, it offers meat. The pig then goes for a goose, because geese are easier to carry around.
And then finally, the goose for a grindstone. A heavy, totally useless object for a man on the move.
And this is the key insight, the ultimate moment of relief for him, is when he bends down to drink from a river and the heavy grindstone slips from his grasp and just plunges into the water.
He's in panic.
No, he cheers. He feels free. He literally shouts, how happy my mother will be that I don't have to drag this heavy stone.
So the story isn't about failing to hold on to wealth.
Not at all. It's about successfully getting rid of your burdens, even if those burdens are the very tools of survival. It proves that in this world, how you feel about your situation trumps its objective value.
Okay, so let's contrast that sort of passive, optimistic success with a success built entirely on brazen, calculated lies. The valiant little tailor.
Oh, this is the ultimate example of manufacturing your own reputation.
It starts with such a small thing.
He kills 7 flies in one go, and instead of just cleaning up, he focuses on the branding. He embroiders 7 at one stroke onto his girdle.
And crucially, the world interprets this to mean 7 men, 7 champions.
Exactly. And the giant, who just relies on his size, completely falls for it. He sees the girdle and believes this tiny tailor has some kind of incomprehensible strength.
So he uses these little parlor tricks to keep the illusion going.
Totally. The giant challenges him to squeeze water from a stone. The tailor, who knows he can't, he just squeezes a piece of cheese he had in his pocket.
And the giant is just completely convinced of his superhuman power.
Then there's that amazing moment where the giant throws him up into a tree, expects him to be launched into space, but the tailor just hides in a branch and then pops out, claiming he flew over the giant's head.
His real success, though, it relies on tactical cunning. He doesn't kill the giants with strength.
No, he exploits their simple-minded aggression. He pelts 2 sleeping giants with stones until they wake up furious, blaming each other.
They start fighting.
They tear up trees in their rage and they fight each other to the death. The tailor didn't need a sword, he just needed good aim and the ability to sow a little distrust.
And that pattern just continues. He traps a unicorn using a tree, a wild boar in a chapel.
And he earns a whole kingdom, based entirely on bluster.
Which brings us to the little peasant, where that cunning turns into something much darker. It's outright, systematic exploitation of an entire community's greed.
Yeah, this is a genuinely dark story of, social engineering. The peasant first gets rich by convincing a cowherd that a stray calf ran off with his cow's bell, so the herd has to give him a cow as compensation. It's an easy con.
But the main event is at the miller's house, where he stages this elaborate scam using a wounded raven wrapped in a cowskin as a soothsayer.
I mean, the scene is masterful in its deception. The peasant has already scouted the place. He pinches the raven's head inside the skin. It makes a squawking noise, and then he translates the squawk.
And it reveals the miller's wife's illicit feast with the parson.
Right. The roast meat is hidden in the stove, the wine under the pillow, the cakes under the bed.
The villagers are just stunned by this clairvoyance.
Oh.
But the immediate consequence is fantastic.
It is. The parson, who's been hiding in a closet on the porch, is identified by the raven as the devil.
And he's dragged out and chased away.
So now the peasant has established himself as this man of mystical wealth. He tells the villagers he got rich by selling his cow's skin for a huge amount of money.
And the greed that follows is just catastrophic.
The entire village, led by the mayor, they kill all their cows, hoping to make the same profit. When they realize they've been had, they track him down to murder him.
But even the revenge plot fails.
It does. The peasant tricks the mayor into thinking he's weeping over imaginary sheep he sees reflected in the river, which are just clouds.
So he convinces the mayor to drown himself by rolling into the river in a barrel to go get those sheep.
And then the rest of the villagers follow him. It's an engineered societal collapse where one lie leads to the mass self-destruction of a whole community. That's a level of consequence you just don't see in modern fairy tales.
So shifting gears a bit from individual trickery to group survival, let's look at 4 creatures who decide collective action is their only option. We're talking the traveling musicians of Bremen.
Right, the ass, the dog, the cat, and the cock. They're all deemed useless, they're all facing death, so they form an alliance. Their plan to become musicians is, charming, but their real talent is weaponizing fear.
They decide to take over a robber's cottage.
Yeah.
And the way they do it is magnificent. They stack themselves up the ass at the bottom, the cock on the cat's head.
And then they just unleash this coordinated burst of sound, braying, barking, mewing, crowing.
It's not just loud, it's incomprehensible to the robbers.
Yeah.
But the really insightful part is how the robbers process the attack later.
Right. When one of them goes back to investigate, their fear turns the ordinary into the demonic.
Walk us through that sequence. What exactly terrifies that robber?
Well, the cat, which gets startled, it attacks the robber's face, scratches him up. He interprets that as a fiery-eyed devil with a knife.
Okay.
The dog, which bites his leg, is a man with a knife. The ass kicking him out the door becomes a black monster with a club.
And the cock.
The cock is crowing his head off from the roof, and the robber translates that as a terrifying demonic cry. Throw the rascal up here. He thinks the devil is calling for him to be dragged to the roof and executed.
So survival isn't about music. It's about creating this overwhelming, confusing sensory experience that plays on their deepest fears.
Exactly. And if their revenge was kind of accidental, the vengeance in the dog and the sparrow is the absolute definition of intentional, calculated destruction.
The sparrow starts out as this kind benefactor, helping the hungry dog by pecking down steaks and rolls for it. But when the cruel carter drives his cart right over the dog,
the sparrow becomes an agent of just unrelenting fury.
It's an astonishingly procedural act of revenge.
It starts small. The sparrow loosens the bone on one of the carter's wine casks, so all the wine spills out. That's a huge economic blow right there.
And when the carter keeps going, the sparrow just ups the ante and it targets his livelihood, horse by horse.
Yes. It perches on the first horse's head, pecks at its eyes until the carter, furious, swings his hatchet and accidentally kills his own animal.
And then it does it again.
Repeats the action with the second horse and then the third. The sparrow forces the carter to physically destroy his entire means of income.
And the final consequence happens at home, which has to be the ultimate satisfaction.
It is. The carter, now ruined, gets home and vows to kill the sparrow. His wife, just as enraged, takes the hatchet, misses the tiny bird, and strikes her husband dead instead.
So the sparrow's vengeance is complete. It forced them to commit every destructive act themselves.
It didn't need to lift the hatchet, it just needed to guide the consequence.
That organized chaos brings us to the bizarre procedural consequences in the stories of Chanticleer and Partlet. We usually focus on the story where they murder the fox corpse.
Right, where the whole animal community gathers to collectively drop a millstone on his head.
But the other Partlet story features a death driven by this chain of failed dependencies.
It's almost Kafkaesque. Partlet chokes on a large nut and needs water, but the river says it won't give water unless the bride first provides a silken cord.
And the bride needs a garland from the willow. It's this strict, nonsensical chain of command.
And the failure to follow this multi-step requirement results in Partlet's death. But the final scene of that story is just as bizarre.
The funeral.
The funeral. Chanticleer's pulling the hearse, 6 mice are the pallbearers, and the list of mourners is just shocking. The fox, the wolf, and the bear.
The natural predators of the animals they're mourning.
Exactly. It reinforces this underlying theme that the social order in these tales is far stranger and more flexible than we assume. Enemies might just put aside their rivalry for a communal ritual.
Okay, so if the last segment was about cunning and revenge, this one is about survival through strict adherence to rules, especially when the stakes are life or death. Let's revisit Hansel and Gretel and the forgotten antagonist.
The true antagonist here, even before the witch, is socioeconomic collapse. The source text explicitly says the father is forced to abandon the children not out of malice, but because of great dearth famine.
Right, the stepmother is the catalyst, but the root cause is starvation.
And the psychological weight of that desperation, parents actively choosing to abandon their kids so the rest of the family can survive, that's often glossed over.
Hansel's first plan, with the pebbles, it works. It proves resourcefulness pays off. But the second plan, with the breadcrumbs, it fails because nature itself, the birds, acts against them.
And then they finally meet the witch. And again, resourcefulness trumps magic. The witch has dim eyesight, which Hansel exploits brilliantly.
The bone trick.
The bone trick. He stretches out a dry little bone instead of his finger when she checks his weight. He makes her believe he's still too scrawny to eat, even after 4 weeks of gorging himself.
And Gretel's final move is just pure legal reverse psychology.
Facing imminent death, Gretel plays dumb. She pretends she doesn't know how to get in the oven, forcing the witch to demonstrate.
And that demonstration is her undoing.
Gretel shoves the godless witch inside and bolts the door, leaving her to burn.
Yeah.
It's this moment of desperate cleverness that just completely breaks the witch's power.
That need for strict compliance is also clear in the Goose Girl. The princess, who's exiled and stripped of her identity, she relies on one single magical secret.
She only has 2 powerful connections left. Her own silvery locks, which she can control with an incantation, and the loyalty of her executed horse, Falada.
And the horse's head is mounted over the dark gate. That constant, mournful dialogue between her and the severed head is an incredible detail.
Falada, Falada, there thou hangest. Bride, bride, there thou gangest. Lassa, if thy mother knew it, sadly, sadly would she rue it. It's so sorrowful.
And the king only discovers the truth by hiding in a bush and hearing her second magical incantation.
Right. A spell to control the wind, to blow away the hat of the boy, Curdken. Her identity is protected because the rules of her exile keep her from using her magic openly. Spying on her is what breaks the rule.
This adherence to strict, literal rules is paramount in magical contracts. Rumpelstiltskin is the ultimate example.
The contract is brutal.
Yeah.
The girl spins straw into gold to avoid death, then she secures her status as queen. The price, though, is her firstborn child.
And her only way out is to discover the dwarf's specific hidden name.
That name holds all the power. The moment she speaks it, the contract is nullified.
It's the ultimate legalistic escape clause. And the dwarf's reaction, driving his foot so deep into the floor he has to tear himself in two to get free, it just shows the catastrophic failure of his contract.
And we see that same rule-following principle in The Golden Bird. The hero fails his quest over and over, not because he's weak, but because he ignores the counterintuitive instructions from his magical guide, the fox.
The fox is very clear. Use the old equipment, not the fancy new stuff.
Exactly. When he's getting the bird, he's told to use the old wooden cage. But he ignores that. He chooses the tempting golden cage and is immediately captured.
And then with the horse.
Same thing. He's told to use the old leathern saddle, but he chooses the golden saddle, and again, captured. The magical world rewards obedience to its specific, often illogical rules, not good taste or ambition.
Which brings us to the ultimate lesson in rule breaking. The price of cosmic overreach, demonstrated by the fisherman and his wife.
Dame Ilsebil.
Her ambition starts small. She wants a better house. Then it escalates to being king, emperor, and pope.
And each time she escalates her demand, the sea gets rougher, mirroring her own increasing moral tempest. But her final demand is the boundary that the magical system just cannot tolerate.
She demands to be lord of the sun and moon.
That is the line. She's not just seeking control over social structures, but over creation itself. This supreme hubris instantly collapses the entire structure of the magic she's been granted.
The flounder, for the last time, simply says, "Go home to your pigsty again."
No negotiation, no further consequence. The magic just instantly reverts them to their original state of poverty. It proves that ambition might grant you social mobility, but trying to seize control of the cosmos is the one rule that guarantees instant, total failure. Hashtag outro.
So when we do this deep dive into the original Grimm tales, the themes that really rise to the surface are stark and they're powerful.
Yeah. Success is often granted to the most calculated.
Revenge is a brutal, systematic process.
Yeah. And the world of magic is governed by these unforgiving, literal rules that you just have to follow.
What's really insightful to me is the cold, practical realism that's underlying all the fantasy. We talked about Hansel and Gretel and how the father abandons his children twice, driven by great dearth, by famine.
Right. These stories serve as these powerful sociological documents. They reveal that even the deepest family bonds will yield to overwhelming economic and societal pressures. The fear of starvation is the engine driving the plot more than the fear of a witch.
And these tales, they force you to consider the fragility of your own circumstances. If the rules of ambition and consequence were as instantaneous and final as they were for Dame Ilsabil, what common aspect of modern life, if it were magnified by that same kind of magical greed, what would instantly send us all back to the metaphorical pigsty?
You should think about that carefully. What small convenience or unchecked ambition in your life today might be the equivalent of demanding to control the sun and moon? Consider the cost of ambition versus, genuine, sustainable contentment.